Hey there, fellow music fans. Welcome back to Psychology of Rock, where we take deep dives into the philosophy and psychology behind the songs and the artists that rocked the world. My name is Nena, and today we're going to be talking all about one of my favorite vocalists of all time, the one and only Ronnie James Dio. I'm going to give a thorough breakdown of his personality profile and then discuss how his unique personality characteristics influenced him as a lyricist, as an artist, and also as a person. But first, if you're new here, don't forget to like and subscribe, and also feel free to offer your own opinion in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. And also, just a reminder that today's analysis is purely speculative and based solely on my own opinion. So that being said, let's go ahead and dive right in. So where do we even start with Ronnie James Dio? He was an iconic singer and songwriter that fronted many bands during his career, including Elf, Rainbow, Black Sabbath, Dio and Heaven and Hell, and he was, in my opinion, one of the greatest and most influential vocalists in all of heavy metal history. He was an incredibly dynamic and fascinating person who sadly passed away in 2010, but he is still adored and loved by many, including myself, and certainly his music still lives on. He is an artist that is well worth trying to understand on a deeper level. And like I mentioned in a recent video about Neil Peart, one of the greatest ways we can gain insight about a person is to have a deeper understanding of their personality profile. This can give us an idea about the lens that they saw the world through and their likely thinking patterns, and help us to make sense of their behavior. Now, normally when I evaluate a personality, I use something called the 5-factor model of personality. But for this channel, I am using the MBTI, or the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, only because it's something that many more people are familiar with. So with the MBTI, we are trying to decipher someone's dominant personality function in 4 opposing personality facets. So we are looking at where they focus their attention, which is either inward or outward, making them either extroverted or introverted, the way they take in information, which is either sensing or intuition, how they make decisions, which is either thinking or feeling, and how they deal with the world, which is either judging or perceiving. Now, Ronnie is a little trickier to evaluate only because he used somewhat of a stage persona, but I think his true personality really did shine through that. Now, of course, there are people who bought into the imagery and made all kinds of incorrect assumptions about him, saying that he was a dark or aggressive person or that he was evil. But if we go back and we look at the interviews, or you talk to someone that actually knew him, they paint a very different picture. And based on everything I have seen and I have read, it is my opinion that Ronnie was an ENFP personality type, meaning he was extroverted, he was intuitive, he was feeling, and he was perceiving. And what makes me even more confident in this analysis is that this is a personality type I can spot a mile away, because it is also my own personality type. Now, in my own case, I'm on the extreme side of all of these traits, making me a very stereotypical ENFP. Whereas in Ronnie's case, I think he was a little less extreme, especially in the facet of judging versus perceiving. But I do still think that he strongly fits into this category. So I want to go ahead and talk about the characteristics associated with this personality type, as well as the evidence that I feel supports the fact that he really matches with these characteristics. So I'm going to give an overview of the traits, and then I'm going to give an in-depth analysis of this incredible person. ENFPs are free spirits that are friendly, outgoing, open-hearted, enthusiastic, and open-minded. They are imaginative, charismatic, independent, expressive, empathetic, curious, and incredibly creative. They have an upbeat approach to life and prefer to have emotional and meaningful connections with the people they care about. Although they can be quite social, they also have a vibrant inner life and are extremely introspective. They look for deeper meaning and significance and like to contemplate the actions and behavior of others. So starting with the accusation that Ronnie was a dark or evil person, not only do I not think that was accurate, I think his tendency to talk about fantasy topics or to question mainstream narratives simply has a lot to do with his nature as an ENFP. This personality type does not take things at face value. They're not going to see things as being either black or white. They're going to see all the grays. They're going to look at things from every available angle. And if we look at many of Ronnie's songs, I think he's simply asking us to evaluate our assumptions and to just think a little bit more deeply and a little bit more critically. In much of his work, there seems to be an underlying theme of looking beyond the obvious or looking beyond appearances, which is something that is very important to an ENFP because it's something that they themselves do. And I know in regard to many of his songs, he didn't want to tell people what they meant. I mean, sometimes he did, but he said that he preferred if people used their imagination and created their own meaning and their own connections. I also think that a lot of the darker themes that were present in many of his songs makes perfect sense for his personality type because they do question narratives. They are very theatrical, they are open to experience, and they tend to like creating personas and characters, so I think it made him just the perfect frontman for all the bands that he was in. ENFPs are also not afraid to explore ideas or themes that other people might be afraid of or judgmental of, so again, I think it really makes a lot of sense that he was able to go to the dark side sometimes. People with this personality type also tend to be great communicators, which is something that he knew was a strength for him. He said in an interview that he felt that he had a really good command of the English language, and I completely agree. He always came off as being incredibly intelligent and well-spoken. I never got the sense in interviews that he was just throwing out answers. It always seemed like he had given a lot of thought to whatever they were asking him about, which again is very typical for this personality type because they do tend to be almost overthinkers. So they're going to look for hidden meaning and connections in everything that they're talking about. He also seemed to be a true storyteller when he was speaking and even when he was writing lyrics. He seemed to like to creatively express his ideas using a lot of metaphors and a lot of colorful language, which again is something that we tend to see with an ENFP. One of the things that has always stood out to me about Ronnie is the sheer amount of people that say that he was such an incredibly nice person, which makes a lot of sense because this personality type tends to have really good people skills, but he really seemed to genuinely care about other people. I know I read accounts of people who had met him in an airport or in another place and that he took the time to really talk to them and listen to them. And at the end, he would even say it was so nice to meet them, even though he was the superstar. And I noticed in interviews, he was always so kind and respectful to the person asking him questions, really treating them like an equal. And I think that has a lot to say about his character as a person. Now, of course, there have been some instances where he went on record and said some pretty negative things about some of his ex-bandmates, which made some people think that maybe he wasn't that nice of a guy. However, from my understanding, it really seems to be that these words were in response to something that he felt was unfounded or cruel or something negative they had said about him first, and these tended to be kind of knee-jerk reactions. Something that we have to understand about ENFPs is that they care deeply about their relationships and they are incredibly loyal, and so they expect the people in their life to be just as loyal. So if they feel that they've been hurt or they have been betrayed, it really stings very, very deeply for them. So I think in cases like this, it's more about self-protection and about being hurt than about trying to be vindictive or cruel to someone else. His wife Wendy always said that when he was on stage, Ronnie loved to be the rock star. He loved to be larger than life and he absolutely adored his fans. However, he also loved being at home. He was a very down-to-earth person. He was very humble and he never forgot where he came from. And I think having the balance of these two different worlds really helped him to have a long career. I think he would have gotten burnt out if he felt that he had to keep this rock star persona on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week throughout his whole life. And I also think he would have gotten incredibly bored if he just sat sat at home and tried to live this very conventional life all the time. He needed that variety. So those are my thoughts on Ronnie James Dio, and I would love to hear if you agree or disagree with my analysis. So please feel free to leave your own thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear what you had to say about him. He is someone that I've always felt that I had this kind of weird kinship with, but interestingly enough, something that I've heard other people say as well. And of course, I could be biased because we do have the same personality type. However, I've always felt that he was incredibly fascinating, talented, and certainly a gift to the world of music. So that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you next week.